We would like to start the day with our anthems, as we can keep standing, so that we can commence the day. Let's be seated. Good morning once again. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and fellow advocates for social justice, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 27th Radical New Bar Press and Public Engagement organized by the Uganda Law Society. My name is Robert Benon Jurua, a litigation officer in the Department of Rule of Law and Litigation at the Uganda Law Society. Today, we gather to discuss a critical topic that resonates deeply with our mandate as legal practitioners entitled Lawyers as Agents of Social Justice through upholding human rights and electoral integrity. The Uganda Law Society, the Radical New Bar, as the National Bar Association, is committed to imparting knowledge, advocating for the rule of law, constitutionalism, and good governance. This engagement is a testament to our dedication to these principles, as embedded in our vision, mission, and strategic plan as the Radical New Bar. We believe that lawyers play a vital role in promoting social justice and upholding human rights, and we are honored to provide a platform for discussion and debate on these issues. The International Bar Association standards for the independence of legal profession as adopted in 1990 constitutes an essential guarantee for the promotion and protection of human rights and is necessary for effective and adequate access to legal services. And we are guided by the UN basic principles on the role of lawyers. But before we proceed, I would like to take a moment to pay tribute to the late George William Kanyehamba, Justice of the Supreme Court, a fallen icon who passed away yesterday, the 14th day of July 2025. Professor Kanyehamba was an icon and a legend in our legal fraternity, and his contributions to the development and the Constitution are a true rule of law depiction of what exactly is going to be discussed here today. As the head of the legal committee at the Constitutional Assembly that drafted our Constitution, we played a vital role in shaping the legal framework of our country. We remember his legacy and continue to draw inspiration from his commitment to the rule of law and constitutionalism. A lot more will be said as we move on with the program. One of his favorite quotes, and in regard to what we're discussing today, is derived from a constitutional court matter, the presidential election petition number 1 of 2006, in which Colonel retired Dr. Kizza Besigye was versing Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and another, in which he noted that the overriding principle of the rule of law is that the Constitution is the alpha and omega of everything that is orderly, decent, and legitimate. Anything that claims to be higher should be shot at once by the Supreme Court using the strongest legal missiles at its disposal. We are privileged today to have the President of the National Unity Platform, Honorable Robert Sentamu Kyagulanyi, a leading opposition party in the Parliament of Uganda, who shall be spoken about more in as far as the continuation of the activity for today is concerned. But without further ado, we would like to invite the head of department, Ms. Afra Apio, to deliver a message from our esteemed CEO as we prepare to engage in a meaningful and thought-provoking conversation, and may these deliberations that we are going to engage in today contribute to the advancement of social justice and human rights in Uganda. Thank you so much.
Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, President, National Unity Platform, Advocate Leader Zedriga Waru, Deputy President, Northern Uganda, Advocate David Louis Bongoya, Secretary General, ANOP, Honorable Sewongo Joseph, MP Kalongo West, and Advocate of the High Court of Uganda, and esteemed members of your entourage from North Headquarters, Makerere Republic. Allow me also recognize the presence of advocates in the room. Advocate Benjamin Katana, Advocate Elias Nalukuola, Advocate Abed Nasa Mujokori. Distinguished council members present, both physically and online, Mr. Eddie Lambulu, Council Member Eastern and Interim Secretary, presently representing the RMB governing council members, presidents of the Rule of Law clubs, distinguished members of the Uganda Law Society, present both physically and online, members of the press, and the public, present both physically and online. Good morning. My name is Apio Afra. I am the head of Law Uganda Law Society. I am representing the CEO, Ms. Christina Warwick, who is currently in this post. My chief task this morning is to read her welcome remarks verbatim, and I shall proceed to do so. On behalf of the Radical Nuba President, Mr. Isaac Senakade Senior Counsel, I am delighted to welcome you all to the 27th session of the RMB Live Series, a hybrid digital and physical engagement convened every Thursday to foster dialogue between the Radical Nuba, the press, and the public. This innovative platform is the brainchild of our dynamic RMB president, and it has grown to become a vibrant space for legal and civil discourse. We are deeply grateful to you all who take time to engage with us week after week. Your participation fuels our mission. This week, we break with the tradition of hosting the RMB Live on Tuesday so as to accommodate our keynote speaker today, who has rescheduled engagements on Thursday. We thank him and the NOP Secretariat for demonstrating flexibility in fixing this date despite a very demanding political program ahead. The 27th RMB Live has taken on additional significance for the ULS fraternity in light of yesterday's deeply saddening news of the passing of Justice Professor Dr. William Kanyehamba, Senior Counsel, a distinguished jurist, academic, and patriot. Justice Kanyehamba served with distinction as a Justice of the Supreme Court from 1997 to 2009. He was widely respected for his fearless diction and unwavering commitment to the rule of law. His judgments were grounded in principle, in courage, and relentless pursuit of truth and justice. They will surely remain a cornerstone of Uganda's jurisprudence for generations to come. Beyond the courtroom, Justice Kanyehamba made remarkable contributions to legal scholarship and education. He was a prolific academic and author, with seminal works such as Constitutional and Political History of Uganda from 1894 to present, and the blessings and joy of being who you are, which continue to inspire and educate future generations of lawyers, judges, and scholars. He made history when he dedicated his entire library to the Faculty of Law at Kampala International University, where he was the first chancellor. His impact extended to the very foundation of our nation. As chair of the Legal Committee of the Constituent Assembly, he played a pivotal role in drafting of Uganda's 1995 Constitution, a legacy of enduring significance. He also served with distinction as Attorney General, Minister of Commerce, and Minister of Justice, using his deep legal expertise to shape Uganda's legal framework and democratic institutions. We extend our heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, and all who are touched by his life and work. As we reflect on his extraordinary legacy, let us be reminded of the values he championed: integrity, justice, and fidelity to the law. Shall we now stand and observe a moment of silence? May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Amen.
As we officially enter the political season, it is imperative to reaffirm that the bar remains neutral and open to all political parties to report their respective concerns with the administration of law. In keeping with this solemn affirmation of the independence of the legal profession, today we are pleased to host Honorable Robert Chagulanyi Senta, National Unity Platform President. Earlier, on 3rd July 2025, we hosted Major General Retired Mugisha Muntu, President of Alliance for National Transformation. On 24th April, we hosted Her Excellency Major Jessica Rose Epel Alupo, the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, who represented the President of the Republic of Uganda and Chairman of the NRM at the commemoration of the life of the late His Holiness Pope Francis. On 21st March, we hosted Honorable Norbert Mao, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs and President of Democratic Party. On 16th January, we hosted Lord Mayor Erias Lukwago, who has been appointed the President of the People's Front for Freedom, and we will continue to provide this platform for all other political actors. This initiative aligns squarely with Section 3D of the Uganda Law Society Act 1956, which mandates the Uganda Law Society to inform and educate the public on matters that concern them. Presently, our engagement with political parties forms part of a broader effort to combat and eradicate electoral violence and safeguard electoral integrity through inclusive dialogue with all stakeholders. To the RNB Council and all our dedicated Secretariat staff who work tirelessly to ensure the success of each RNB live session, your commitment, professionalism, and teamwork are truly commendable. I am sincerely grateful. To Today, we are privileged to host Honorable Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, the President of NUP, who will deliver the keynote address on a timely and vital topic, lawyers as agents of social justice through upholding human rights and electoral integrity. As we reflect on today's theme, let us remember this. Each of us, whether seated here or joining us virtually, has a role to play in the upcoming elections, and the role begins now. Through our clarion call, Bang the Table, Back on Track, the Radical New Bar reaffirms its unwavering commitment to ending inhumane and degrading practices and ensuring that Uganda's electoral processes uphold dignity, fairness, and the rule of law. In that spirit, we warmly invite you to join our alliance against electoral violence, a collaborative effort to champion electoral integrity across the nation. Thank you all for your kind attention and your continued support. I have a small announcement to make. UAY 539B. I now take this singular opportunity to invite Mr. FredLumbuye. Thank you.
I need to adjust this, and I think since my brother is taller than me, he may need to adjust it further. Good morning, everybody. We are delighted to host you this morning. There is that aura of something good is about to happen in this room here, and indeed, Mr. President, something good is about to happen. Allow me adopt the protocol as laid down, but again also express I've been rescued by my brother here. Thank you, this is much better. I will not have to lean over. Allow me welcome you, Mr. President, to our home. This is the home of the Radical New Bar. We host over 5,000 advocates. Many of them will bear stripes like yours. Many of them are eager to advance the cause for the rule of law. Many are eager to promote justice. Many are hungry, but also many have woken up to the realities of the day. That the rule of law is merely imaginary. The courts of law are merely a fiction, a fallacy. They do not deliver basic observance of human rights. There are no guarantees in this country. And so when we even gather to listen to you this evening, we are eager that from this address, those that have been sleeping shall wake up, that those that have been slumbering will hear your voice. The Radical New Bar has been calling out the voices for change, to stand up and be counted. Our brother here has always stood with us here. But there is a clarion call for every member, every Ugandan to stand on the right side of the rule of law. Many of them haven't had that call, mostly because of, I think, who is calling. As the charismatic leader, my hope is that they will hear your voice. And those are words coming from me. I wrote down something to read, but I have to first deliver what is near and dear to me. When you began your campaigns in 2000, at the past elections, you were in Mbale, and among your first talk shows that they prohibited you from attending was in Mbale. You came out strongly and fought for your rights to address the public. The case was filed over that time there, and on occasion I used to appear with the council on brief at that time. But it was a different day for us in the regions because the Ugandans had never come out to speak for themselves. Even the lawyers had never come out to advocate for their individual rights. When you came out and you witnessed heavy police deployment at the court premises, you witnessed violence, prohibitions, and all manner of impediment to prevent you from appearing in court. I remember on the second last day before the matter was disposed, I appeared on that day, and when they asked me where you were, your vehicle had been seized and had been impounded, and you had been denied the means of accessing the court. And when I told that to the court, it wasn't convinced. It presumed that there was a desire not to attend court. But as a matter of fact, and even as I will go on, you will observe that the rule of law activists and the fighters for justice are victims of oppression. Many of them are being subdued, many of them are being suppressed. Right now, our own president can't be with us here, Mr. President. He began the strongest advocacy that we have ever witnessed within the legal profession. That advocacy disturbed and disrupted many persons that weren't pleased with hearing the truth. The sad thing about our state is that when they are told the truth, their recourse is to suppress the truth. They suppress the voices of truth. They suppress any meaningful voices for reform and change. Right now, he can't be with us here today because of what he was saying, because of what he was calling out against the powers that be. It displeased them. We are running a race to ensure he returns as early as possible. But just like you and just like all of us, we are caught up in an oppressive system, one that subdues any meaningful voice of reason. But we cannot be subdued. We can't be subdued. When we recall your ordeal in Arua and in many other areas that you've been, and your strong voices for change, what we draw from that is we cannot allow the oppressors to take the day. We can't allow the oppressors to take the day. When you listen to our president, wherever he is, he bangs the table from there. Wherever he's sitting, he's banging the table. Even with the chains around his legs and hands, he bangs the table. After that case there, we went on to represent a number of your agents who had been arrested. At that time there, because of the charisma you had shown, everybody admired your agenda. And the only way that they would disperse those persons and those voices of change was to lock them up. Mr. President, a number of your agents were locked up on charges of robbery, on charges of treason. Many of them, as a matter of fact, haven't been released. We did support some of them at that time. And then, because of a thing or two, we lost track of the matters. But we are heading back into the same cycle. And the only known way of prohibiting the truth from being heard is to lock it up, to chain it, to silence it. But we can't be silenced. Our voices won't be silenced. My name is Edin Angolo. I didn't begin with that. But everybody here knows me, as a matter of fact, except my brother here. You don't know me, but everybody here will tell you that they do know me. In just a minute, today's R&B Live is one of its kind. Unlike the usual business, today we are having a public lecture from a notable figure, one that has been drawn from the trenches. He's one of us. He bears our stripes, he bears our scars, he bears our hunger, he bears our passions. But also, while we suffer pessimism, he bears optimism. And as he will embark on his lecture later on, we hope that his voices and his call shall be heard by those that are in the deepest of sleep, those that have given up, those that have succumbed. I want to thank the members who are attending online, the members who are attending physically. I want to thank our team that is on ground now, who has made it possible. This is an important day because our country is at a critical point. We are looking into the 2026 general elections. This period presents an opportunity and a test for democracy. As the country once again prepares to go to the ballot and choose leaders, we must be reminded that there have been challenges in our past elections. We have witnessed violence, intimidation, vote rigging, disenfranchisement, and a number of human rights violations. If anybody has forgotten, we have a living example sitting in front of us here. Our own brother, his shirt was torn, he was bundled up and mistreated, and becoming of an advocate of his stature. But these are the scars that we must bear again. These are the scars that we must bear. Our president keeps on saying that no one shall know the tale until they get to experience the difficulties we've experienced. During such times, there's a critical question that we must answer on the role of the legal profession. As lawyers, as defenders of justice, as human rights promoters, and as guardians of constitutional order, what is our role in this process? Our guest speaker this morning will take us deeper from his own experience of the electoral cycle and the human rights as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and my singular honor to invite Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu to discuss with us lawyers as agents of social justice through upholding human rights and electoral integrity. He's a lawyer, an artist, social activist, a leader, philanthropist. He is the president of the National Unity Platform. In 2017 to 2021, he was an independent member of parliament. And during that time there, he set up the People Power Movement, a force to reckon with in Uganda's political dispensation. But before politics, he was a successful musician who used his talent and celebrity status to appeal, to advocate for social justice and the rule of law alongside other issues that concern the common man. Since joining politics in 2017, he has remained at the forefront of the struggle for freedom, human rights, good governance, and democracy. This has made him a symbol of resistance and hope for many. He brings a unique perspective as both a leader and a lawyer who has been stretched to the limits and possibilities of Uganda's legal system. He and his supporters have been abducted, illegally detained, persecuted, subjected to all forms of inhumane treatment, and yet they continue. They continue in this pursuit. Allow me invite him to address us this morning. Thank you so much.
Well, Councilman mentioned that I like Victoria Renew, and I was feeling flattered all the time until I got to the microphone, only to realize that I'm probably shorter than him. Mr. President, in absentia, and the entire Radical Bar, distinguished members of the bar, students of the fellow citizens, dear friends and frenemies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I saw some people giggling, but yes, you cannot be in a gathering and only expect friends, so you have to recognize all people. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply honored by the invitation to address this very important gathering of the land friends. Today actually becomes even more significant following the passing of a giant of constitutional law in Uganda, Professor J. Wilson Kanyahamba, a man who has championed the rule of law in Uganda at great personal risk and sacrifice. In fact, today everything that I want to say to you can be simply summed up by a call to the lawyers of this generation to simply emulate the life, the words and actions of Professor Kanyahamba, who was a man willing to sacrifice everything, including friends, status, material benefits, everything for the sake of advancing constitutionalism and the rule of law in Uganda. May the Almighty God receive his gentle soul in heaven. Friends, as a young boy growing up in Kamocha, it was always my dream to become a lawyer, because apart from the poverty, ignorance and disease that are always the major problems in the ghettos, in our ghetto there was one relevant problem, and that was injustice. And I always thought to myself as a child growing up that I would be in better position to address that injustice if I became a lawyer. But again, like many children in Uganda with big dreams and limited means, when I missed out on government sponsorship, that dream died, at least for a while. In the year 2020, in the year 2000, studying law on private sponsorship was simply out of question for a person like myself from a background that I was coming from, because the cost was just prohibitive. Tuition fees for just one semester in law school when I joined Makerere was enough to buy a plot of land in Nansa. Yes, only the rich would afford it. And what did I have to do? Is to take another choice that I could afford. Well, thank God, many years later, when life allowed me the means and time, my dream resurrected. And in my 40s, last year, I graduated from law school. I didn't expect you to clap. I expected you to say, oh, sorry. The only person I expected to clap was Council Manager. friends, for me, that actually was the first major realistic encounter with social justice, or rather social injustice. Because yes, while government sponsorship should indeed be reserved for the brightest amongst us, but even those students who come from remote districts with limited facilities and therefore not able to compete fairly with others, especially those in town, should at least be presented with an opportunity for them to pursue their dreams. After all, it's indeed the duty of government to subsidize for their citizens and make dreams achievable for even the commonest of their citizens. Because you see, when the rich are the ones that can afford to dream, and the poor can even dare to aspire, can even not dare to aspire, then society ceases to be society, it becomes just a market. Many dreams of the underprivileged people are destroyed in their infancy. And the society is not a society proud of. So that brings me to the question, what then is social justice? What is it? We all define it in different ways. But in my humble view, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like social justice at its core is the principle that every person, regardless of their status, regardless of their background, deserves and indeed achieves equal chances, equal opportunity, equal rights, and equal protection by the law. Unfortunately, today, in this nation that we call home, that is actually not the case. In Uganda, the law is nothing more than the paper on which it is written. The regime of the day will twist the law to its interest. It will use it as a weapon, just like any other weapon at its disposal. If it serves them, then they will praise the law. They will honor it and they will sing it. And that is most especially when it serves them to silence critics and to keep political opponents in prison. Whenever the law stands in their way, like it did during the constitutional term limits and the age limit, they conveniently kick it down the drain. In Uganda today, the 48-hour rule, as stated by the Constitution, is nothing to be considered. They abduct citizens and they even boast about it. They keep them in incommunicado detention for days, weeks, months, and sometimes even years. And then, at their convenience, they present them to the courts of law, and nothing is done. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, speaks of two ironies. The first irony is that the person presiding over all this impunity, and that's General Museveni, while he was addressing this very law society that I'm addressing today, on the 25th of February 1987, he spoke so passionately. He said the law can be manipulated against the people. He said, and I quote, "Depending on the nature of the state in a given society, the law can be an instrument of oppression and exploitation, or an instrument of social justice and progress." Law, it went on and said, law is not always synonymous with justice. It can be, but also it may not be. What is legal is not necessarily just. Law can be used by the strong against the weak. It can be used by the rich against the poor, and it can be used by the minority against the majority. That was General 7 on the 25th of February 1987. And yet today, in the face of the regime, you will find many outstanding lawyers saying that that is what the law says, without even wondering or asking themselves whether that law is just or unjust. And the second irony, and perhaps the most painful one, is that most of these abuses, most of these wrongdoings, most of this arm twisting of the law are facilitated by lawyers. I mean, if I may ask, who drafts the oppressive laws like the UPDF Amendment Act of 2025 and the Public Order Management Act? Lawyers. Who sanctions fake charges against regime critics? Lawyers. Who prosecutes citizens like Kiza Besigye in complete violation of due process? Lawyers. Who remands victims like Eddie Mutwe, torture victims, clearly tortured people, who reminds them to prison? People like Eddie Mutwe, people like Kakwenza Okendarasaija, who sends them to prison instead of sending them to the hospital? Lawyers. Ask yourself, who has frustrated our electoral justice system in Uganda to the extent that it's clear that overturning a presidential election in Uganda is harder than a camel passing through the needle, the eye of a needle? That is lawyers. Today in Uganda, those who steal taxpayers' money are protected by the criminal justice system, while those who protest against them are punished. They are abducted, they are tortured, they are even raped in custody. Today, Uganda, and indeed the criminal justice system in Uganda, is teaching our children that it is okay to steal, but it is criminal to speak out against theft. The Supreme Court of Uganda, the highest court of the land, passes a judgment ordering the state to stop trying civilians in military courts, and the regime simply ignores the decision. A decision of the highest court of the land, and business continues as usual. Elections are rigged with impunity. Petitions challenging the rigging are decided even before they are heard. Now this is even more painful. A justice of the Supreme Court had to run out of the country for fear of her life just because she dared to decide our petition judiciously. Her crime was stating that it was unreasonable to expect me to collect evidence and prepare my petition on time when I was under house arrest for more than half the time provided by the Constitution. Not even to say that that time is enough, but for more than half of the time I was in detention. She mentioned it, and for that she is in exile. When we complain about all these illegalities, the courts are very quick to invoke the political question doctrine. Now, when courts choose doctrine over truth and theory over justice, then we find ourselves back to 1966. In 1966, the court was facing a violent overthrow of the 1962 Constitution. It chose political expediency over constitutional legitimacy. You all remember that in the case of Uganda versus Commission of Prisons, the ruling in that case became the first post-colonial excuse, and every regime has used that to justify the using of guns to either silence or rewrite the law. Friends, you remember some 10 years ago, Professor Okonyango wrote, and I agreed with him. He wrote about this case and said, in many ways, this case was both an ending and the beginning of Uganda. A very dangerous precedent was set, and it has continued to be an excuse to justify military takeovers and fraudulent elections to the present day. Now, another even more disturbing excuse which continues to impede our democracy is the so-called substantiality test. Under Section 61 of the Presidential Elections Act, the election of a president, the election of a presidential candidate can only be annulled upon proof, among others, that there was non-compliance with the law governing presidential elections, and that, and please listen to this part very carefully, and that compliance affected the election result in a substantial manner. What do they mean, substantial manner? What exactly do they mean? You will note that in all the past presidential election petitions, the Supreme Court of Uganda has always conveniently used this so-called substantiality test as an excuse to overlook the proven and glaring vote rigging together with the electoral violence by the military and the police. All that has always been done in favor of General 7, but the court has always overlooked that. Even when they know that every single act of rigging or every irregularity, however big or however small it is, was done precisely to alter the result of the election, and also knowing very clearly that no one rigs the election just for the sake of rigging. They rig it to win. But again, they always bring the substantiality test as an excuse, and they always overlook the facts to decide what they want to decide. Friends, lawyers should have the moral courage to call it exactly what it is: judicial cowardice dressed as legal doctrine. Ladies and gentlemen, that judicial cowardice is what has failed our democracy, and it has kept our country moving in circles. It ignores the reality that in Uganda, electoral malpractice happens throughout the entire electoral process, from pre-electoral times to post-electoral times. I mean, you see abductions, you see torture of opponents, you see gerrymandering, you see internet blackouts, you see military deployments, you see open briberies, etc., etc. You don't just see the ballot stuffing and rigging on the day of the election. It happens long before, it happens during, and it happens long after. But the courts of law have always closed their eyes to that. If we had the rule of law in Uganda, what is named, then this was supposed to shape the entire legitimacy of the entire electoral process, but it does not. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court chooses to favor the regime just because they feel safe doing that than upholding the rule of law. So, dear land friends, I think it is high time that lawyers stop acting like they are safe in this burning house called Uganda. Friends, you are not safe. In a burning house, in a sinking boat, nobody is safe. So don't even lie to yourself. we are here, but I look around and see that all of you lawyers are just as vulnerable as the ghetto people where I come from. Right before me, Councilman was there, was abducted and kept incommunicado for almost a week. He is a lawyer. That alone is supposed to speak to all of us, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Chidiyama was a lawyer, but when he walked into the reckless community, he was suspected of being a thief, and he was beaten to death. Ivan Bakesiga was a successful lawyer in his own right, but when illness came, he was as vulnerable as anybody else. He tried to fundraise, but eventually he died. All of us, I mean, who does not remember Bob Kasango? Yes, he was controversial, but he was a very good lawyer, and he was a very wealthy man by any standards. But he died in prison, denied bail, and by extension denied the medical attention that is so badly needed. He passed away. Now, I want all of you present here today and those watching us online to ask yourself that if Mudiogole, a renowned lawyer, if Bob Kasango, if Ivan, if Peter, if they're not safe, why do you think you are safe? Why do you think you're any different? Now, please remember that no one is safe in a lawless society. Not even you, the lawyers. You may have degrees, you may have titles, you may be successful, you may be well known. But when this regime crushes constitutionalism completely, you are the next that they're going to come for. I promise you that. If Uganda collapses, as we all see, it surely will. If we don't do what we must do, every one of us is going to be as vulnerable. If the country burns, it will burn you as hot as it burns a border rider in Chifumbira or in Chevani or in Kamacha. You're not going to be any different. So, my dear land friends, my humble request is that you join the rest of the citizens in saving this country. You lawyers of all citizens, let's understand the problem of Uganda. And by that, you can be part of the solution if you choose to be. And that way, we shall all be safe. Because like we continuously say, all of us will be safe or no one will be safe. I want you to remember, ladies and gentlemen, that history is calling different generations of lawyers in Uganda. I've always risen to the occasion whenever history has called. We all remember that it was lawyers, including the now gone Justice Kanyamba. It was lawyers that were the driving force in the Moshi Conference, which culminated into the liberation of Uganda from the Amin dictatorship. And yes, it was lawyers like Council Simon Juba, who was once president of this very society, the Uganda Law Society, that rose to the occasion, closed his chambers, folded his sleeves, and joined the rest of the citizens in the 80s to try and liberate this country and return the rule of law that he so dearly believed in. He did not sit in his chambers when history was calling for his involvement. He got involved, and you too can get involved. I want you to know, friends, that while you're young, while you might look at yourself as unready, please be reminded that we are the Kanyamahambas of this generation. We are the Sam Jubas of this generation. Do not doubt your abilities. There is no other important time to take action than now. Allow me to also remind you, dear land friends, that this right here is the most consequential time in history. of Uganda. This right here is the most effective time for you to get involved. This is the most interesting time to be alive and to be mature and to be in this room. This time, the second best, no, the best was yesterday, the second best is now the best, and then do what we must do. I'll also borrow some words from the great author called Confrence. He said, every generation must discover its mission and then decide to either pursue and fulfill that mission or betray it. I have no doubt that you lawyers here have already discovered your mission, and the world is looking at you to watch you either pursue that mission and fulfill it or betray that mission for convenience. The ball is right in your hands. Friends, you are the hope of this generation. You are the lawyers of this generation. When history is being written, your name will be among the lawyers that were present in 2025 when everything is going south. So we are already having the responsibility and the burden on our shoulders. I want to tell you, friends, that it is not enough for you lawyers to protect your contracts. It is not enough for you to represent banks and big businesses while you're ignoring the political prisoners. Some lawyers say they are neutral. They say the law is not political. But the law has always been political. I mean, it is political when Bobby is taken to prison for putting on red. It is political when Justice Chisache runs to exile just because she ruled against the regime. So lawyers must pick a side because justice in itself is political. And in a time of injustice, neutrality is complicity. In this time, lawyers must pick a side, either the side of the law or the side of lawlessness. You cannot stay in the middle. I want to pause and I want to request most of you, in fact all of us, to pause for a second and imagine this. The Attorney General, the chambers of the Attorney General of this country, a man who brought the UPDF Act Amendment of 2025 to drag civilians back into military tribunals. His chambers share a wall with these very headquarters of Uganda Law Society. Please pause and think about that. I will say that again. The private chambers of the Attorney General, of the man, the Attorney General, the man who presented the UPDF Amendment Act of 2025 to drag civilians back to military courts. These chambers are sharing a wall with the Uganda Law Society office where we are now. And his partner in those chambers, is not just any other lawyer. He is the son-in-law of General Museveni, the man at the head of this regime. So now that is legal political marriage standing just meters away from us. Just pause and imagine that for a second. The politics is in the law, and the law is in the politics. They are both mixed and mingled. And yet some lawyers say they are neutral. They say the law is not political. And meanwhile, the president of the Uganda Law Society, Council Isaac Semakande, is in exile, largely because of his opinions. Now that is supposed to tell you everything that you need to know about the system. That even the society that is meant to defend lawyers cannot defend itself. And by the way, friends, don't get me wrong. I don't want to come off as if I'm pretending not to understand where we are. I know we're not living in France. I know we're living in Uganda under General Museveni. So, I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand the complexities of legal practice and the dictatorship. I know that every lawyer here knows about the fate of the former Chief Justice of Uganda, Ben Chiwanuka. I know that all lawyers in Uganda know that he was picked from his chambers and he has never been seen again up to the present day. So I can imagine the fear in the activist lawyers as they go about their work under this dictatorship. But again, friends, we must face it, because we cannot just resign to fate as if there's nothing that we can do about it. There's definitely something that we can do about it. If anything, it calls for us to be even more bold and more determined and face it with even more courage, because if lawyers don't speak up, then who will speak up against lawlessness? I recognize among you many noble lawyers that have not shied away whenever justice has called them. I want to thank you. I salute the legal team of the National Unity Platform for rising to the occasion and putting their fear aside to defend our members and our supporters and our fellow citizens against oppression and injustice. I salute the relentless work of lawyers like Counsel Aaron Chiza. I salute Counsel Gadarius Wakafuzi. I salute Counsel George Musisi and many other lawyers whose practice has become synonymous with activism despite the risks. You guys are not just lawyers, you're patriots. And I want you to know that the Holy Spirit in the heart of God. Thank you very much. We all are strong and continue to be strong because of your example. I would also thank some of our brothers in the legal fraternity, people like Counsel Mamidi. That people always being a problem because they always challenge us to be a better version of ourselves. I'm glad that none of your challenges has gotten me off guard, and I hope none will get me off guard. We are not your friends. I mean, we are not your enemies, our brothers. We are colleagues trying to make Uganda better. And indeed, we must always keep each other in check and be open to be checked, because that's the best way we are going to be servant leaders. Brothers and sisters, today I want to dedicate this my presentation to the late Anthony Wameni, a lawyer whose commitment to defending victims of political persecution will remain imprinted in the memory of our struggle. Thank you very much. May his memory live in us forever. And to you now, the lawyers, the students of justice, and the citizens of Uganda, I say this. Please look back at the different generations of lawyers throughout Uganda's constitutional and political history, and please reflect on what they did when the nation was losing its way. Then pause a little and ask yourself, will your future self look back with pride to your present self? Will your future self be proud of the decisions and the position and the stand that you took today? That's a question that you don't have to answer right now, but I hope it's a question that will keep lingering in your mind. My brothers and sisters, it is a moral challenge to all of us lawyers. It is a moral challenge because if the law speaks, then lawyers must be the voice through which that law speaks. We must be the conscience that refuses to go numb. We must be the dream that refuses to die. We must be the truth that refuses to hide behind neutrality and technicality. Uganda is not short of lawyers. You are many, we are many. But Uganda is short of courageous lawyers. Lawyers who refuse to sell their values for convenience and for comfort. Lawyers who understand that justice is not a job description. Justice is a calling. If the law is being used as a weapon against the people, then let the lawyers be the shield. If the Constitution is under attack, let the lawyers be the defenders of the Constitution. As a lawyer, you should be found standing at all times. You should be found standing morally in the courtroom. You should be found standing in the streets. You should be found standing in history. And if your children and grandchildren are to ask one day, your answer should be that when the time came, I stood on the right side of history. Whether or not that will be your answer to your grandchildren is for you now to decide. I thank you very much, friends, for listening to me, and God bless you.
All right. Another round of applause for the President. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for those thought-provoking statements, your wisdom shared, your personal experience. We have a lot of stories about you. We are so honored that you're able to come and share with us. We have a lot of respect for you. I come from Arua. I was one of the people who was in Arua at that time. It wasn't a very nice experience, but your bravery has brought us this far. We thank you so much, and we continue to pray that the Lord bless you in all your endeavors. We're very sure of you. You're just one of us. We love you, and we're not going to stop until the time comes right that the Lord comes. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, those physically present and those online, we're very honored to have you with us. And this is the Radical New Bar at the best thing that it does. Our tenets, democratization, decolonization, digital transformation, and demilitarization is what we are doing today, and we have had very beautiful statements from the President, a lot of take-homes that we are going to use into the next agenda item, which is question and answer. Mr. President, we thank you that you're able to be here with us. Would like to delve into question and answer. We know there are questions in the House. There are also questions online. Would like to take a few minutes to go into that session, and we have a microphone over here moving around with Samantha. Are you in? Ladies and gentlemen, time for questions of what has just been shared by the President. Please. Do we have? Okay. We got one question here, Mr. President, from one Gerald Odom. He is asking, Honorable, we need you as a member of the Uganda Society Radical New Bar. What are you doing? When are you doing the bar course and becoming a member? Mr. President, these are not our questions. We are picking questions from the general public and some from members. I would request that you receive them with grace, like you always done, and feel free to answer them. We shall also, through you, allow you to maybe pass the questions that you think can be asked the panel available. They are all and strategic plan as the radical new bar.